and welcome to the 5th episode in our Sailing into America's Heartland series. We left off with us in Tobermory, Ontario, on the eastern shore of Lake Huron, and we were excited to begin our explorations of the Georgian Bay and North Channel. Watch our previous video where we crossed Lake Erie east to west, navigated up the Detroit River with a fun stop-off in lovely downtown Detroit, before we made our way across Lake St. Clair, busy with commercial traffic, up the St. Clair River, and under the Blue Water Bridge and into the southern tip of Lake Huron. We enjoyed a couple of Canadian ports on our way north along the eastern shore of Lake Huron. Once we gazed into the very clear waters in the harbor of Tobermory, we knew we were in for a treat. In this episode, we explore Tobermory before heading north in Georgian Bay toward the famous North Channel. We spent nearly 3 weeks in this area, so our material will truly be a highlights tour. You'll need to make a visit for yourself to get the full experience. Upon exiting the North Channel, we spent a couple days in a very different, but nevertheless pleasant place, Mackinac Island. Then we passed under the great Mackinac Bridge and into the waters of Lake Michigan, our third of the Great Lakes. We explored Beaver Island before spending several days on the Door Peninsula, which makes up Green Bay and is north of Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. While provisioning in the great lakeside town of Tobermory, we took a day to explore the area by biking to this place called the Grotto, which is this amazing swimming hole. It is truly incredible that this rock formation is all part of the Niagara Escarpment that stretches in a great arch up from the Niagara Falls area in upstate New York into this stretch of Ontario, and then it curves north and then west and eventually south to be part of the shore that forms Green Bay on the western side of Lake Michigan. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, here we are in 18-degree water, and both Tom and I are in. The waves are pretty big, so it keeps bouncing us around, so sorry about that. The water, 18 degrees Celsius, so pretty darn freaking cold. It takes a while to get used to it, but this area is just gorgeous. With our boat full of fuel, fresh water, and lots of food, we headed out of Tobermory Harbor and took a drive-by of the flower pots, which are prominent on the shore of the island by the same name, Flower Pot Island. These cool rock structures are formed by thousands of years of nature's tools at work, predominantly wind, water, ice, and the right makeup of rock. I just love it.
All right, today is Monday, the 17th of July, and we just arrived in the North Channel area. North Channel was our destination all along, so we got here, we finally made it. We are up a little tiny kind of fjord area and in a little cove off the fjord. It's called Marianne Cove, and I'll show you what that's like. So this is kind of like the landscape of a North Channel, rocky shoreline, trees, very it can be very deep water in areas, and so you'll see, I'll show you a little better, a whole bunch of power boats rafted together over there with lines off bow anchors, and then tying a stern line ashore. So me and my able-bodied crew member slash wife, we did it for the first time. So we dropped our bow anchor, we came back and set it, and then I went ashore in the dinghy here, ran a line to that tree, and then from the line we brought it into the stern. So this seems like it's going to be the typical way to secure yourself in these anchorages, because they're small, they're narrow, and you need to kind of secure yourself with lines ashore as well as a line in the water. All right, it's July 17th, and we just finished hiking up to what's called the Casson Peak. Yes. So this is the kind of sound where we came from. Way in the distance down there is the sort of bay, Georgian Bay, where we were last night, Club Island, and we came across the sound here, and right in the middle of the frame here is the Narrows we came through. This is called Bay Fin, and this is the very first part of it. We will go quite a ways further beyond where you can see here, up to a place called the Pool, and check that out probably tomorrow. And in the distance there is what?
McGregor Bay.
McGregor Bay, with lots of little islands, and you can see lots of rocky shoals.
It's looking almost directly north.
Yeah, so this is looking directly north.
We are still in Bay Fin, and we're at the other end of it from where Tom recorded the video on the top of the mountain. And here's where our boat is anchored, which is lovely. There's all these rocks off it, but it's still like 20 feet deep there. Here are some shots from our ride further up Bay Fin toward an area called the Pool. This area is very undeveloped, and even though thousands of boaters explore these waters each year, there is so much space that you often feel you are alone with your little slice of nature all around you. Here's the area called the Pool, where there is a bunch of little coves to anchor in. We took this amazing hike out of the Pool area. The hike takes you up through pine forests and around rock outcroppings to suddenly bring you upon stunning Topaz Lake.
Yeah, Topaz Lake, and retired Olympic diver Thomas Robert Grimmett. Okay.
Yeah. The last of the highlights from our time in the North Channel is our very favorite spot from the entire summer of exploration, the Benjamins. The two most prominent chunks of land are North and South Benjamin Islands, and collectively, with the hundreds of tiny islets surrounding them, this incredible area is affectionately called the Benjamins. This place is very special, and that is obvious by the number of boats that anchor here each night. We stayed here for only 3 days, but we could have stayed many more. We paddleboarded in and among all of these tiny islets. The rock is predominantly pink granite, so with the contrasting green moss and foliage, plus the crystal clear water, the images are breathtaking. I think Tom flew the drone here 4 times. Enjoy these highlights. As I mentioned, we spent quite a bit of time in the North Channel, so there were other terrific spots that didn't quite make this highlights list. If you've explored these waters, please comment on our video and tell us about your favorite spots. It was a bit of a shock to transition from the very secluded and rustic anchorages of the North Channel into the harbor of Mackinac Island, especially considering that the long-running Port Huron to Mackinac sailboat race had just concluded and the harbor was crammed full of race boats. Still, What a place this is once your mind adjusts to the load of tourists. Cars have never been permitted on this island for the long history of this tourist destination. In fact, I think nothing motorized is allowed, so you won't see golf carts or mopeds either. Just horse-drawn carriages for all assisted movement of everything, even all of the supplies for the grocery stores, the hotels, etc. We rode our bikes around the perimeter path, which amounts to 8.2 miles. Here are some of the sights we enjoyed along the way.
Today is Wednesday, August 2nd, and we are crossing over Lake Michigan, upper part of Lake Michigan, to the Door Peninsula in Wisconsin. So we're really excited to be in Lake Michigan waters. This is our sort of third day on the Lake Michigan side. We left Mackinac City 3 days ago, and first day we came over to Beaver Island, which was a surprisingly nice spot. We didn't really expect too much of it. It seemed like it was probably going to be an island sort of out in the middle of nowhere, not a lot going on, but there's a ferry that comes in there. There's people that live there year-round. Obviously, with that, there's a lot of summer cottager people coming there. And we spent 2 nights there at Beaver Island in St. James Harbor in the north end. So we had a nice stay in Beaver Island, and rented some bikes and did that kind of thing. There's some beautiful beaches on the western shore of Beaver Island, which we didn't expect as well. We would have probably brought our bathing suit and a picnic if we had known that. But anyway, very nice there. And got away early this morning because we have a long trip to make today. We have about 70 miles to go to cross over. Beaver Island isn't that far over the sort of east-west line of upper Lake Michigan, just a little ways over from Mackinac City. This stretch that we're doing now is about 70 miles to get to the Door Peninsula. All right, so after a long day of sail, we arrived at Washington Island, and beautiful spot. You can see a car ferry arriving here. So Washington Island is just off of the northern tip of the Door Peninsula. We weren't quite sure where to come in here, but we found this little harbor that's got an old breakwater. It looks like a pier that used to be used for car ferries. It looks pretty abandoned at this point, but it makes a great area, protected area to anchor in. Been a windy day today. We've had some really great sailing. I saw the peak speed about 8.3 knots. It's Thursday morning, August 3rd, and we are still in Wisconsin. We are going down along the Door Peninsula now, and cloudy day, but I just wanted to show you how the geology is like strikingly different than what we've seen. This is, I'm thinking this is limestone, but you can see obviously very steep cliffs here. Very different than what we've seen. On the eastern shore of Lake Michigan, it's all sand dunes and sandy beaches and all that. Here on the Door Peninsula, you can see very steep cliffs. We were told about how the geology changes here a lot, and we're really excited to experience that and see what it's like, and maybe do a little paddleboarding around some of these cliff areas. But this is the extension of the Niagara Escarpment that we've been talking about at other points in the trip. So this starts all the way over by Niagara Falls in that area, and goes across through Ontario, through the North Channel, and then comes out here in Wisconsin along this whole peninsula area. So maybe not quite as attractive as it would be on a sunny day, but still very interesting.
We were meeting longtime friends Mary and Dave in Sister Bay, Wisconsin, and the day they were to arrive, there was a gale warning. Thalia is tied up in this harbor. It was tricky getting on and off the boat. The next day was sunny and calm, and we took in a bunch of local sights. Yeah, those really are goats up on the roof. and the family who owns this restaurant has been bringing these guys to this restaurant every morning for years. According to Mary, Bloody Marys in Wisconsin are served with a beer chaser, so we had to make sure that that was really the case. After Sister Bay, we anchored in Egg Harbor, where we enjoyed an evening outdoor concert and marveled at the amount of flowers that are planted all over this town. What pride the locals have in their city here. We left Green Bay via the Sturgeon Bay Ships Channel and began crossing Lake Michigan. Which brings us to the end of this episode. Tune in next time to see beautiful and rustic South Manitou Island with their famous sand dunes, and our first stop as we make our way back so we can eventually get up into Lake Ontario for the fall. While we move along at a good clip, we did stop to take in some new sights that we'll share, particularly the fun we had in Canada's southernmost island, Pelee Island, and our adventures of transiting the Welland Canal between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, and the other stops that we made along the north shore of Lake Ontario. Thanks for watching!